So I'm here on the couch with Neil Anderson from the Coast to Coast Healthcare. You're a young GP, if you don't mind me saying that.
Yeah, no problem at all.
And originally you did your training in Scotland.
Yes, that's right, yeah.
So how long have you been in New Zealand?
We came here in August 2012, so that would be nearing on 4 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you'd undertaken the Scottish Highlands and Islands rural fellowship training in Scotland, is that right?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah. So I did my GP training in Inverness and out in Gairloch, which is on the west coast of Scotland.
Right.
And after my 3 years and we achieved the membership of the Royal College of GPs, wanted to sort of study a bit more on rural healthcare, and got involved and applied for the Scottish Rural Fellowship, and which is a 1 year programme to try and recruit and retain GPs and keep them in the domain and encourage. One of the things that they recognise is new GPs who are qualified, some of them are scared of going out to work in rural places or might not get the exposure, and what resources do they have and how do they deal with emergencies. And the scheme is to try and give them that opportunity to have a supported year to achieve those disciplines. So.
Yeah. You know, I think that's something that we could learn from a great deal here in New Zealand. Mm-hmm. You've had an opportunity to look at our system and the UK system and the Scottish system. How do you feel the two compare? Is there many similarities or differences between the systems?
Yeah, I mean, just to touch on, I would always sort of say that the Scottish healthcare system is very similar to the New Zealand healthcare system. Some of the things within the NHS perhaps can be a bit more expeditious, shall we say. Yeah. And in some parts of rural Scotland there's less access to private healthcare that there may well be in New Zealand, but I think the systems fit really well, which kind of, obviously from a doctor perspective, it makes it a lot easier to transfer and come over and adapt to the new system. So.
Yeah. So what was it that drew you to New Zealand?
Interesting, the topical words of the work-life balance was the first thing that we talked about.
Yes.
Yeah. But yeah, it's essentially a feeling that the winters can be long and cold and dark in Scotland, and perhaps maybe just trying something new. I always wanted to travel and see a different side of the world, and my child was coming up for 2 years old, and we thought, well, if we don't go now, we may never go.
Yes. Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I think that's actually mirrors my story quite well. For 25 years ago as well, leaving the UK, where I did my training. Again, young family, there's an opportunity to travel. So that's and then I found myself in a place where all of my skills were utilised very well. Mm-hmm. Fantastically supported community and a beautiful place to raise our family, which is why we came for 6 months and are still there 25 years later. So. I hope you have the same experience.
I hope so as well. Yeah.
So part of it was looking for that work-life balance. But we heard from Nigel Latta this morning about work-life balance and how it doesn't really exist. Shall I say? Do you accept that? Do you believe that?
I would probably say anything that you're passionate about. I would probably agree that doesn't exist, and part of it is actually being able to adapt to either the needs of the community that you're working in, and to be able to do that whilst at the same time maintaining your own health as well is important, absolutely. And I would definitely say that managing your workload and keeping on top of it, keeping on top of those blood results, those inbox messages, and leaving your desk empty every day as much as possible is the key to sort of sustainability and not becoming burnt or stressed.
But also just enjoying the work that
you're
doing,
yeah.
And how it sort of blends in with family and so on as well.
Yeah.
So having experienced the Scottish system and looking at how young doctors are trained here in New Zealand, do you think that there's lessons that we can learn in terms of our training scheme here from comparing it to your training scheme and how you experienced that?
Well, it seems there's quite a lot of good little schemes like the rural immersion schemes that place people in different parts, such as the Whangarei scheme, and I think we all know that with regards to recruitment retention in rural parts of New Zealand, is it's partly maybe part to where the doctor comes from, but ultimately the individual's experience as undergraduate or postgraduate that actually dictate whether they may stay in that area.
Yeah.
The Scottish scheme was designed to keep me in the or keep young doctors in the scheme and keep them recruited and retained to these areas, but obviously it's been unsuccessful in my and maybe perhaps from their view it might be unsuccessful, but I would argue actually it's been successful because it's actually put me into a career in rural practice. No matter where I'm going to be, it's still defined that for me. So
yeah, I think it's quite successful from the Scottish system, and I wouldn't, because it does lead on to that retention, and as you say, but if you take a global view of it, then it's it's 100% successful. But there's how many of you here in New Zealand?
At the moment, I'm aware that there are 3.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yourself and 2 others.
Yeah.
So quite a few of them stayed in Scotland.
Yeah, I think it's about. I think the recent paper that was done from 2 months ago suggested about 72 have stayed in rural parts of Britain and have substantive GP posts. Yeah. So I think it's achieved its aims absolutely.
I know from the rural chapter of the college's perspective, the same issue is raised by trainee GPs when they complete their fellowship. That we know that people don't necessarily, not everybody feels able to take that step into rural practice. There's a sense of danger in doing that. That you are further away from major support centres and have to get involved in more emergency care and urgent care than perhaps you've been trained for, and I think there's a lot that we could learn from the Scottish scheme, so thank you very much indeed for talking to us about it.
No problem at all. Thank you very much, Joe.
Good.
Thank you.
Nice to talk to you.
All the best.